Good afternoon. My name is Brian Makris. I'm with Home Choice Lending, and today we have Grit Matters, and we have a very special guest in here. His name is Roger Howe. Roger Howe is here in Bedford, New Hampshire, and he's with us. And I'd like to thank you for joining us, Roger Howe.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about who you are, where you came from. I know you're in real estate. You said you started, I think, off camera, we were chatting around 2010-ish.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about where do you live and children, and tell me about that.
Yeah, I've been in Bedford since 1996. Moved here with my wife and
Okay.
son, and we've raised 5 children here total.
Wow.
Gone
Praise
through
the
the
Lord.
school district.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, and endured the all the school and high school and the services we've gotten in Bedford over the years. We've been all through that,
Nice.
and very, very happy being in the community. I got into real estate kind of. I wouldn't say by necessity,
Okay.
but I had been in the power equipment business for almost 30 years. Started off with a mom and pop store when I was in my early 20s. Was a mechanic and was very good at it,
Okay.
and was factory trained
Wow.
by a number of, like the John Deere people
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Briggs and
Legit.
Stratton.
Real stuff.
Oh yeah,
Real
yeah,
work.
exactly. And I did that for 10 years, and I did cars on the side, working in my driveway and
Wow.
changing oil for.
So with 5 kids, it's Dad, can you change my oil? Can you fix my tire? Or was it a
Yes.
constant
Well, as time went on, they became much more complicated, so I was able to put that aside and
All right.
move on to other
All
things,
right.
keep my hands clean.
Fair enough,
That
fair
sort
enough.
of thing. But I got a really good, and I think that background has helped me in real estate in a number of ways, and we'll talk more about that. I know.
Yeah, definitely.
Further on, but I was promoted, I guess, from a mechanic.
Okay.
Right up to service manager
Okay.
at a very, very large dealership at the time on the Seacoast.
Okay.
I had roots in the Seacoast with my parents living in Hampton. I built my first house in Barrington.
Wow,
And a number of things, but this was all going on. But it gave me a really good base with customer service. I had to meet and greet clients and customers all the time as a service manager, deal with the bad, cultivate the good.
Yeah.
A man by the name of George Fulbrick, who owned the business I worked for, he was dedicated to customer service. You polish the gold and you cherish the silver. And you keep, your customers
Yeah.
satisfied, and you keep them coming back. And I think that again, that has really resonated for me in real estate, especially 10 years, 12 years into it.
Love it.
But then I went through a divorce. It was a tough time.
Yep.
I had to get away from that. And I sat down one day after having worked at Hampton Ford as a service writer, and I hated it.
Okay.
It was just that the auto world wasn't for me.
Sure.
I sat down and made a decision that I was going to go back to all the people that I had come in contact with in the power equipment business. And as it turned out, I sat down and made cold calls.
Love it.
To
Grinding.
Aaron's and
Yeah.
Toro and all these companies that most people are familiar with in that world, and I got a call, and I ended up being the inside sales rep for a very large distributor called Crandall Hicks out of Westboro, Mass. I was single at the time, didn't have my children during the week, so it was easy for me. I was driving from Newmarket, New Hampshire to Westboro every day.
You could grind. You get the work done and grind.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then an opportunity within 2 months came up, and they saw the value of my knowledge because I had a huge background. I could talk about the mechanical side, the repair, the parts side, not just the sales and whole goods side. I was given the territory of Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Which is where I really, really hit the road running, and
Nice.
it has paid off in real estate as well. Not only because for 10 years or so, I gained contacts.
Yeah.
Went into the wilds of Maine, knocking on hardware store doors,
Sure.
trying to drum up business. At one point, I was the 7th highest grossing salesman for errands
Wow.
in the country.
That's massive.
And it was all because all right, where's the Service Star
You worked.
hardware?
Yeah, you
Where's
just
true
yeah.
value?
Yeah, you just got into the grind.
Yeah.
So you got into real estate around 2010, I think
Yeah.
you'd mentioned.
Yeah.
And you're now with the Bean Group, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think you'd said you'd only been with two companies in your entire career. Is that right?
Yeah. And
That's rare, by the way.
it's really rare. I know, but for me, and we said this the other day. It was when I worked for Crandall Hicks. It wasn't Crandall Hicks that they were doing business with. It was me.
Right.
And I lived up to what I said I was going to do, and I tell my children this: always do what you say you're going to do. Don't go halfway. So that's how it's been with me in real estate. I have this thing about, all right, I'm going to buy that sign this week, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do that. And,
Right.
And I think, especially where we're such a referral conscious business.
Yeah, you said all your business is referral.
It is now.
Yeah.
Every bit of it is all referral now. After 10 years, it's taken me to
build that.
build that up. But I got into real estate as a necessity because the company I went back to work for was being sold. And I got let go for the first time in my entire life. I'd never been fired. I'd never been laid off.
It happens.
The owner called me on New Year's Eve.
Wow. And said, hey, 2000, the new year's going to look different for you.
It was 2009, going
Wow.
into 2009, or excuse me, 2010. No, 2009. And I knew it was coming. And that October, I actually decided I was going to get into real estate because my wife was in real estate. She worked for the Boschman family at Remax Synergy here in Bedford. We had bought our house from Tom Boschman in '96, so it was kind of an easy draw to get into that. But ironically, Kelly Cohen was my instructor.
No kidding.
Cohen Closing and Title.
They're right across the street.
Right across the street.
I talk to them all the time.
Exactly. And her mother, Kathy, was my instructor when I got into pre-licensing courses.
No kidding.
And so it's really tight. The way this has all kind of evolved for me in real estate. But I got my license January 12th because I knew that this was coming.
Yeah.
And
you started that October-ish and then hit the ground running.
Hit the ground running. I had already been told by Tom and Joe Boschman that I could come to work for them.
Open arms. Come
open
on
arms. Because of my background in what I did with power equipment, I had a good working knowledge of square footage and retail space and setting up dealerships and things like that. So they didn't have anybody doing commercial at the time. And they said, if you want to do commercial, you walk right in and you'll get all the leads.
Love it.
I mean, how could I turn that down?
No,
right?
definitely not. Definitely not.
So I started off in commercial, and then it kind of evolved into the
residential side. So I want to talk to you off camera. We were chatting a little bit. In today's market, it is a very tricky market out there. You run into multiple offers. You see multiple offers come in. I know if you counter to one or counter to two and two people accept, it is kind of a tricky thing dealing with contract law.
Yeah.
When you look at offers, tell me, I mean, I know the cash and conventional, but tell me, what's your pecking order and how do you look at offers for your seller and how do you advise them on which one you think is the best? I mean, because I know you're going to help them and they're going to look at them all, but how do you kind of help them sort through? If you have 9 offers on a property, that's a lot to look at.
Right. I think the biggest thing I look at before I start to build my piles of
Good
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C,
best, better, sort of thing, is what particular part of the contract is most important to the seller.
Okay.
Because you do have different situations. On the buy side, maybe they need to go and buy another house to make this sale go through.
So speed and timing.
Speed, timing. Is the buyer going to accept the fact that the home sale contingency is based on that, and that you get to that end, it could be another problem, and those sort of things. But generally, we start the piles off with cash, FHA, VA, conventional, look at those pieces, and see what part of those contracts, closing date, the financing end of it, home inspections, due diligence, do those things fall into and I always tell whether they're a buy client or a sell client, we're going to build a timeline. We're going to build timelines as to how these things will work and where you'll benefit. And, these other attributes we'll talk about, certainly fall into that.
Sure.
But it isn't always cash that's the winner.
Okay.
It really isn't. There's other things that go into that.
So you mentioned off camera that you'll go through a house and you'll look at it and you'll say, okay, this will meet VA guidelines. This will meet FHA guidelines. We have a real flexible buyer here that's coming in bringing this offer, and they're allowed. They don't have a home sale contingency. And you'll look at all of those scenarios, and someone might even say, "Hey, we can cover an appraisal shortage up to 2,500 or 5,000," and I'm sure you've seen 10 or 15,000, some crazy things.
Yeah.
So all of those seller rent backs we've talked about before.
Right.
So you'll take all of those in consideration. You find out what's most important to the seller, and then you'll break it down and say, hey, out of all these, here's the three that you said was most important,
Right.
and let's focus on these three. And we get, highest and best, or we get an opportunity to counter to that one.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I'm glad you just said that, because when we left our little pre-discussion the other day, you'd asked me to think of something, and that's astounding to me in this age of multi-offers. From the buy side now, I would speak,
Sure.
but I think it contributes to what you're talking about or what we're about to say, and that is how many agents don't come back with a highest best request. You've just done all this work for your customer and your client, and you've got it down maybe to 1, 2, or 3, and how many of them don't go back out and say, okay, whose time are you wasting? Are you not getting? Is your client not getting the best out of you when you're not doing that and doing that little bit of extra work?
Because you find that I mean, it'd be so great to see the offers and be like, all right, well, this guy was already high bid and he came up, and this guy was high bid, and now they're competing offers because they both have the flexibility of move dates.
Right.
So now your top three all of a sudden rise to the top, or cream rises to the top, and it's the best thing for your seller, and that's great. So
and it's not always price either, because if we talk about appraisal deficits, maybe it's, hey Brian, you're a little short. You're not gonna. I don't go into detail, obviously.
Sure.
But you're a little short on the appraisal deficit.
Yeah.
You think your clients are liquid enough that they can bring in a little bit more, and you'll be
up there in the top. Top 3, top 4, whatever it is.
Exactly.
I love it. Want to talk to you a little bit about how important it is when you're bringing in a new listing, okay? And I know that you have one, and we're going to show it here in a few minutes. But price, how important is price? And I mean, I've seen houses with price reductions even in this market. So
me too.
That tells me that they didn't price it right. So what are your pricing strategies, and what are you taking into consideration, and how important is price to you and to the customer to make sure it gets listed right for the competing offers to come in?
Yeah, I painstakingly, probably to a fault. In fact, I just mailed to an older gentleman who doesn't correspond with email and cell phones and all that.
Okay.
I met him, and give me your email address, Bobby. And he said, oh, no, well, I'll mail it to you. So I just mailed it. It took me 3 days to do the analysis for this particular piece of property that was just completely unique. And but I take a lot of time and a lot of pride in putting those analytics together to get the pricing right. I've been astonished by how many times since COVID we've seen a listing go under contract and see the price change. It's listed at $299. They've gone under contract, but they've raised the price to $350. Yeah. And I don't understand that. I don't know what they think that the appraisers are not going to go back into history and click on the H and in the NARN and see that it had a price increase and the dates don't. I don't understand that part. But to me, getting it right the first time, and no matter what market you're dealing with, makes a lot of sense. Because a part of my marketing plan when I present a listing client, not only the comp report and what the data, that went into that.
Sure.
But listen, this is what the data suggests. I'm giving you a range perhaps, but based on where we're at in the marketplace, I certainly would expect that maybe you would see offers as high as $20,000 or $30,000 more. But I don't price that in hit the street.
Sure, you're
with the
pricing
listing.
it in to bring the competition, to have that, hey, well, we do have multiple offers, and it does change the mindset when somebody's out there making an offer.
Yeah, in fact, the property that your client was recently involved in.
Yeah, beautiful home.
I would have to tell you, we had 30 showings in 12 hours on that property, and we limited those showings to just Saturday and a half a day on Sunday. And literally every agent, because when I accept a request for a showing, I deal with that myself. I always want to make contact with the other agent, send them an email, tell them, here's some additional information, kind of put something else that you're not going to see in the listing. Every single one of those agents that corresponded back to me said this is easily going to go for $700,000.
Gotcha.
And we priced it at $650. That's where the market data drove us to.
And that's awesome. So I remember that house. I remember calling you up saying, hey, I've got a great buyer coming in.
Yeah, and she called me too.
Yeah, that's great. That's good teamwork right there,
It's good teamwork, but when you can have a conversation with the lender perhaps, but the agent that's that much in touch with her client and doing the best job for her client or his client, I love that.
Yeah.
I love having that correspondence with the agent. It gives me a chance to sell.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not just popping the listing out there and saying, okay, let showing time handle all the scheduling, and
you're
wait.
involved right through the process, and so many agents in the local area. I mean, you're in the heart of Bedford, and I know that you have Seacoast connections, Lakes regions. You've been out in Keene, all over. So, how important is the lender to you? I know we talked about that, and if you have two offers come in, and one's an internet lender and one's a local lender, and the lender, does that sway into your conversation with your customer, and does that mean a lot?
When I first got into the business, I didn't understand that as well as I do now. And I think it's one of the most important things, you as an agent can come to understand. Early on, I got very frustrated with the underwriting process, and in fact, one of your old buddies.
One of my old colleagues. I know him well.
I refinanced with him, and it was a long, drawn out, and I really, really got upset because I felt like I wasn't being serviced correctly as a customer at that time. But I was still doing real estate, so it was a learning process for me as well. So I really got into it with the underwriters and trying to understand that process. And
digging in.
Where's my file? Whose desk is my file on right now,
Right.
And I started to learn more about the process. And at the same time, I'm conducting business and I'm listing properties, and I'm seeing that these online lenders are not giving me the same performance, human contact, communication, whether it's lack of communication or timeliness. I'm not getting a phone call or an email back, when I expect.
Right.
My expectations are high. That's why I love working for myself and not running businesses like I used to and have employees, because my expectations were way too high.
The squeaky wheel does get the grease. So
doesn't always mean complaining, but
No, I agree though. Yeah. I'm with you. So you do need to hold them accountable, and you need to make sure that communication is there, because you have to advise your seller, or you have to chat with your buyer to make sure everything's still on track. Especially, you had mentioned a simultaneous close, and trying to coordinate those together, is all about that communication piece. And I know that your service background really translates into how much time you spend involved in the transaction to keep it going.
Absolutely. But let me just say one last thing. The online performers, I'm not saying all of them are bad.
Okay.
But when I'm on the buy side and I see a pre-approval from XYZ in Baltimore, Maryland, Redmond, Washington, or Minnesota, wink, wink, I encourage them immediately. You need to start looking at a local lender.
Yeah.
You do. And sometimes they take me up on it, sometimes they don't. Most of the times I can,
Just
get them to...
I always say, just get a second opinion with somebody I know and trust. Doesn't mean you have to use them, but at least I know the guy will take my phone call on a Saturday or a Sunday. I also know what he's capable of doing or she's capable of doing. And that to me makes the difference. And you don't have to use them, but I can tell you 9 out of 10 of my customers end up using them. And that's kind of some of the things of how we're getting more and more transactions. We're growing rapidly, and I think it's because people are having some fallout out there, and they're tired of the fallout. Too many things out there on the hook.
Indeed, and although every LO that I have worked with, I've enjoyed working with them.
Sure.
Go back to moving around and being at different places, you
Sure.
know, whether it's, you know, an agent or a loan originator. They have, those people that I no longer work with have moved to a company that I would not do business with
Sure.
anymore. And I've got enough track record of failures or problematic transactions with those companies that, you know, hey, I really would love to do business with you, Fred, but, you know, now you're working with this guy over here, and I've had some really bad experiences with them.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with the LO.
No.
It was all about the underwriting or the
Back office.
appraisal. You know,
Yeah.
why is it 2 weeks into the transaction and the appraisal hasn't been ordered yet?
Right.
And I told you at time of, you know,
Time is of the essence, and get it ordered stat.
yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
there's no due diligence, there's no home inspection,
Correct.
so we have no, you know,
Right. Right.
that sort of thing. But yeah, stay local.
Definitely, I like that because I'm local.
Yeah.
I want to share with you, or I want to ask the $1,000,000 question out there right now, because everyone out there is like, you know, I've got a foot of snow on the ground. We've got more snow coming this weekend. Is this the time to list? And you've been in the business. You're in the trenches. You are showing houses and listing houses. What is your expert opinion in today's market? I mean, is this the right time, or should people be pumping the brakes?
I'll go back to a thing that I talk about very often, whether it's with clients, with you, a couple of days ago when we talked about the subject, and that is when I was in the power equipment business, after I left being out in the field and hitting the turf, I actually ran a business on the west side of Manchester. I bought a business from a family that I set up in the business. They wanted out. I wanted to stay home with children and, you know, be close to home and not on the road. And it became very stressful at this time of year to be in the power equipment business. If you're not getting snow, you're not selling snow throwers and snow removal equipment. In the middle of August, if you're not getting any rain, you're not selling any lawnmowers, you're not servicing things.
Right.
So it was a completely high level of stress being in that business. I always used to say to my wife, and she used to remind me, after we watched the weather and commiserated, all we need to do is get through January. Get through January, and then you've got 28 days, and you can see the grass growing in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've used that same adage in real estate because January has always been a tough month for me. Okay. I don't think I've ever had a closing in January, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned that. It's traditionally slow, and I mean, you're coming out of Thanksgiving and New Year's and Christmas and just that whole holiday period, and then you're quickly rolling into winter break. So there's a lot kind of going on. The industry as a whole is slower in December and January.
Exactly. And so, you know, I've taken that and said, you know, to my listing clients, you know, if we're talking about real time now. We're not talking in general 12 months out of the year. But to answer that question, yes, right now, of course, right now.
Okay.
We need to prep because we can see, you know, we got 50-degree weather coming up this weekend.
We do.
Okay. People care about, you know, the property and the inside and all that sort of stuff. Snow can get in the way. We have to deal with that. But I think my timeline is always, yes, we need to prepare for getting that property on the market. We as listing agents now have a very clear ease of doing business because there's so much overwhelming buy side out there that you can put a property on the market tomorrow and more than likely have multiple offers if it's turnkey and not problematic and is a clean sheet. But I think with the exception of maybe from middle of November to the end of the year, once the holidays are past, that's the only time of the year that I would not recommend putting a property on the market. Otherwise, I've been shown through my own experience that no matter when I put a property on the market, if it's marketed properly, priced right, and we've prepped the listing customer properly, that you need to stage this, you need to remove the tea set and the spoons and the collections and the, you know, you got to repair this and that. than any time of the year, especially now, is good to put it on the market.
So right now is a great time. So if somebody is thinking about making that shift, they should call Roger Howe, Bean Group, and say, hey, I need to start prepping to understand what I need to do to get my house on the market in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a week.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Now I know this here is a brand new listing. It just hit. It's absolutely gorgeous. You have 45 or 50 photos online. I went through them. I grabbed three of my favorites, but
Yeah.
it is absolutely gorgeous. So tell me about this house. And this, this again goes back to, you said, is it the right time to list? You're saying, yes, I'm putting this on the market. So
Yeah.
tell me about this house.
So I got to give you a little background on this one because
Okay.
this lends itself to how I've built my business. I'm sitting at the table, Thanksgiving Day.
Wow.
My phone is sitting on my lap. My wife hates this. My phone vibrates. I
Yep.
have it off, right?
Yep.
I look down. It's Zillow. I used to do Zillow quite a bit.
Sure.
I look down. I literally we have a little, appetizer.
Mm-hmm.
We break. We usually have 20-something people at the house. I say, I got to go downstairs and take it. So
Yeah.
I go down. I get a client out of it. Eventually sold her a house. Okay. This is the grandmother of the woman that I sold the house to 6 years ago.
Service.
Okay.
They
Service.
still remembered you, and still you stayed in contact
Yep.
with them, and now they're calling you back.
Exactly. This client also was one of the references I made about the LO in the
Oh yeah.
lender
Yeah.
dropping the ball.
Yep.
Midstream, we had to leave that lender, go to a local lender.
Yep.
Okay. I've since sold that house and sold them another house in Limeboro.
No kidding.
And then this is the grandmother that called me last summer.
No kidding.
So this is all flowed beautifully. But to get back to this house here, I actually put this house on the market in October.
Okay.
Okay. Not the best time of year, and I told my clients that because we were late October. I think it was October 26th we hit the market. I said, you probably got about 5 good weeks before Thanksgiving hit.
Sure.
Of some selling activity.
People buy waterfront. They want a paddleboard, they want a boat, they want a kayak, they want a canoe, and then they pump the brakes on a
Yeah.
vacation home or a primary residence. It can be either.
Yeah.
So that you're going into that off season there.
Yeah, but this, again, going back to what does the client require? What is
Sure.
the hot spot for them? They wanted to be snowbirds,
Yeah.
okay? And they knew that they were going to be going to Florida. And if they could wrap this up before they went to Florida, and they did have another house to go to that was actually being built. It was an in-law apartment at their daughter's house. But we have had consistent showings on this property all winter long. Now I get it's very unique.
Yes.
It's waterfront, so you're going to have people that are thinking about the 2022 summer season.
Sure.
It's been one of the only properties on Pawtuckaway Lake that's been active. But I've got 2 showings that I'm assisting on Thursday for this property.
I love it.
We advertised in New York City. We advertised in Boston. We did a big, long marketing campaign. I just went over that with Brendan.
Nice.
I told him,
Nice.
we're getting those inquiries. But as you can see, it's not the traditional.
No, the house is up on stilts in some
on
of the
stilts.
areas. It's very lifted.
Yeah.
And when you get into that million-ish, right? Is
Yeah,
that
1.1.
Yeah, 1.1. Then all of a sudden it starts to shrink down your buyer pool.
It does.
If it was 350, 400, it's gone in 2 seconds.
It does, yeah. And but it's a gorgeous property, and the reason it hasn't popped is simply it's not for everybody. It's an architectural gem.
It is.
It was designed by the head of the art department at Phillips Exeter Academy.
No kidding.
Back in the 80s. And then my client, when they bought it, this was the original part of the house. They
Gotcha.
built on 2 more what I call trident pods.
Yeah.
Which is this one here and that one in the middle. So
I love it.
Just a very unique
It's
property.
almost
But
like it's like a tree house, like a million-ish dollar tree house.
it's a tree house with a little cottage right at the waterfront. So there's actually 2 structures on the property, and then there's a number of other storage buildings and garages up at the top of the hill. But just a gorgeous property.
I love it. I love it. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for coming in today. Okay, it's
been fun.
It's always good to connect with the locals here in Bedford.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested in that home, they can text you right at this cell phone number or drop you an email, whichever is more convenient. Or
Any time of day or night.
Yeah, I mean,
answer-
Thanksgiving, you will find a little bit of, huddle time to get into your office and make the call.
My wife and I had an argument this morning about who had more use on their phone last week, and she said, clearly you were on your phone more than I were.
It's the business we're in. It is.
Exactly.
We're both in the grind. But, Roger, I really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you, Brian.
I think
Thank you
this
for
is
having
valuable information.
Yeah.
So thanks so much. Any
Let's
last
do it
closing
again.
words?
Sell. Communicate with your clients. It's the biggest thing, whether you're on the listing or the buy side, and happy selling.
Perfect. Anyone out there looking to buy or sell, give Roger a call. I know he's an expert in the business. He's been doing this for a long time. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.